Test, test, test. Hey, do me a favor, and if you have Discord, join that. See what pops up for you. So there should be. I'm testing out this feature of my Discord where I have like a general public spot for people to hang out, and it should be visible that there's a section called Stream Community. If someone could confirm that, that'd be great. You see it? See the stream community? Do you see the little like posts under there? Say like daily discussion and stuff. Am I supposed to be able to post anywhere else? You should be able to post under the stream community section. For those who are just joining, we're doing like a pre-stream test of something. I haven't gotten into any content yet. I'm just testing out the Discord. But the post history is inaccessible. First time catching a stream live. Nice. You see the stream community, but can't post. But the post history is inaccessible. Okay. And the. Oh, okay. There you go. Okay, so I think what I need to do is I'll change this. The permissions is what I need to do. So view channel, I need to be able to allow you to see post history. Okay, what about now? Can you see the post history now? You should be able to see. Everyone should be able to see it now. Cool. So I think the format that I'm gonna use for this is I'm going to create a daily discussion thread. I really liked so back in the day when I was first starting, I was on ETH Trader, and one of the things that we did daily was there's a daily discussion thread that was popped up, and I kind of just like funneled, daily discussions into uh, one, on a chronological basis. So I kind of liked the way that that was organized, and I want to do this. Um, And you guys should be able to create invites too, I believe. You should be able to create and send invites to this thing. Okay, give me a couple minutes. We'll get started like 2:02. I'm gonna get some water and stuff, and then we'll get into it. All right. Um, so for those who have no idea what's going on, I was having some of the people in chat test out the Discord. I opened up a public section that is, for like stream folks. If you'd like a link to the Discord, here it is. Bam. Go ahead and join it. It's open to everyone. Now, this isn't the part when I say "quote unquote" the Discord. This isn't the trading group. This is just a section, a subsection of it that is for the stream community. Yeah. So go ahead and check it out. The way it's situated is it Discord has a new feature called forums, and it's kind of like it looks like Reddit. Honestly, it's like different threads. People can create different posts themselves if you want to test it out. Go nuts. This is for everyone here, right? So, um, if you go to the Discord, you'll get shoved into a lobby, but there's also the option to see the stream. There's a quote unquote stream community. So go ahead and check it out, and you know, we can build the stream community there, and yeah, I'll be adding different features to it as I play around with it. I just found it out today, so I just found out about it today. So I want to add it. I'm also gonna pipe in my Twitter accounts, or I'm sorry, my Twitter posts. So it'll be like a one-stop shop for all of my content. I'll post my video recordings, all kinds of other fun stuff there. Yeah, what else? In terms of my actual trading group, um, I'm thinking I'm gonna open it back up, but I'm gonna create an application to do it. I don't know if I want to just open up the floodgates and let everyone join. Um, I've carefully curated it over the last few years. It's been open since 2017. So I'm kind of wary about letting people in, and I don't necessarily want to just like degrade the quality of the discussion there, because we have fun, we shit post and stuff, but like for the most part, it's high quality content. People are always really respectful, and it's just kind of a good place to get away from like the memes of crypto Twitter and our Reddit, and really just focus in on the stuff that you're here for, right? But yeah, I see people are already hopping in here, so that's good, cool, I like it. I'll go ahead and post a link to the Discord throughout the stream, so if you miss it, no big deal. I'll throw it in later. Okay. Okay, I see some questions here. Let me see. Do I like to use Discord now instead of Twitch? Well, I've always used Discord. I've had it. So funny enough, the Discord actually arrived organically from having Twitch. I was like one of the first Twitch streamers for crypto back in 2017, and I created a Discord to, just for the stream community, and yeah, I just kind of grew from there. So I've always been on Twitch. I'm sorry, I've always been on Discord. Discord and Twitch, like Josh is saying here, they go hand in hand. Like they're complementing each other. Yeah. Okay. So let's go ahead and get started with the discussion. So let's start with the dollar index. That's where I always like to start out. My quick spiel on the dollar is, if the dollar is going up, everything else is usually going down. And if the dollar is going down, everything else is usually going up. They're kind of like inverse sorts of deals. And if we look at the dollar on the monthly, nothing really has changed since the last stream, but let's cover it. We have this overhanging resistance. The market broke through, came back down, it retested it, and it retested it impressively. It accepted the support and closed a bullish engulfing. So now we see current intra-month choppiness. But at the moment, this is, by all intents and purposes, now a support and resistance flip, where it was prior support and now it is resistance. So what that means for Bitcoin, if you're new to Bitcoin, maybe this is a surprise, but crypto in general, like a lot of price activity can happen in a month. Bitcoin is up like 30% over the last week or so. Like it's up big time. And so just because the dollar is overall bouncing, that doesn't mean that Bitcoin can't have its day in the sun. And we're seeing evidence of this, right? Just this tiny little pullback on the dollar was all Bitcoin needed to take off. And when we look at our trend metrics, they're bullish, right? So the dollar is bullish macro wise, but if we look at the daily and stuff like that, like it's obviously seeing some chop. It might even be making this head and shoulders bottom here, where you have your shoulder, your head, and your shoulder neckline here. So if this thing comes back up, if the dollar does break out, I expect Bitcoin and everything else to claw back. But so far, the dollar is giving crypto enough breathing room to really thrive. So let's go ahead and add this to our notes. So dollar. Let's just say Dixie, right? Dixie monthly and weekly chart is still bullish, but intra month price activity is enough to give Bitcoin the room it needs to thrive. Boom. Okay, so let's go ahead and talk about Bitcoin. So Bitcoin is still within this megaphone deal where we have the broadening, it's sometimes called a broadening top, a broadening wedge, megaphone, all different names for the same thing. And essentially you can think of it like a symmetrical triangle. Symmetrical triangles are consolidation patterns that look like symmetrical triangles, right? We have different flavors of triangles. We have descending, we have ascending, and we have symmetrical type triangles. There's some other ones where it's like a falling wedge, which, But either way, the way we should think about this consolidation pattern in general is it is price agnostic, meaning that it can break to the top side or it could break to the downside. Last stream, we were in this candle here, this red guy, and I was talking about how we want to watch for this daily close, because if it closed a daily bearish engulfing, that is a major sign of weakness. And by the time the daily closed, it closed just an inside candle. And yesterday, which is the point of note to take away from here, is yesterday closed a bullish engulfing candle, which means that the low and the high completely engulfed the prior candle. And what that shows is there was strength going into the close. Any bearish effort to push the market down was swallowed up. And it's hinting toward continuation here. Now, at the moment, we're having trouble getting above this, closing the daily candle above this prior high. Maybe by the end of the day, it closes well above this high. But just at the moment, it's having a little bit of trouble. The reason why I bring this up is because when we look at things like the weekly and we slap the cloud on there, let me send this back. Send to back. Okay. We'll bring you forward. So with the cloud, if you're not familiar with how it works, the cloud it's kind of like a one-stop shop for trend. During sideways price action, it's kind of just useless. I mean, it does provide like some value, but its main strengths are trend, right? With the cloud, not only do you get trend metrics of short-term and long-term trend metrics, but you also get dynamic support and resistance with it. And at the moment, I'm trying to find a cleaner chart for you guys so it's not all dirty. Let me see. Okay. Yeah, it's cleaner. Okay, cool. At the moment, we are just below resistance. So if you're a cloud trader, this weekly chart is saying, hey, possibility of long-term macro moves, but at the moment, if this thing maybe it comes inside, so to speak, and then it gets spat back out, so to speak, of the cloud. This thing should be thought of as resistance. This whole giant blob is resistance, right? And vice versa. When the market is on, above the cloud is thought of as support. For the most part, the color of the cloud doesn't really. It's kind of irrelevant. There are some more nuanced ways to view it, but for the most part, if you're just looking at this as the casual consumer of the cloud, resistance, support. And right now we're coming up on our first test of the resistance. It hasn't quite gotten there yet. It's like just a little bit shy of it. But what we really don't want to see is we don't want to see the monthly come into the cloud and close back outside, because that'd be kind of like coming into support and then closing back on top of it, right? Or coming into resistance and closing back below it. What that would show is essentially confirming resistance. Now, the other side of the coin is if it closes inside the cloud, that's a strong setup for an edge to edge. And essentially what we can think of is, because this whole blob is resistance, it's not just like a discrete line. The more it gets rejected, the stronger the resistance. And if this thing makes it past this initial perimeter here and it closes inside, it has a very high likelihood of traveling to the other side of the cloud. And this sort of setup is called an edge to edge. So I'll add this to our notes. So for Bitcoin, weekly cloud has, so I'll say weekly itchy setup currently has, sometimes it's called just the cloud, but technically the cloud itself is called the Kumo. So we'll get technical with it. Currently has overhanging Kumo that Or currently it's overhanging Kumo. Let's do this. All right, so A, if weekly fails to close inside Kumo, this would be a sign of confirmed and strong resistance. Conversely, if we can close the weekly candle inside the cloud, inside the Kumo, that sets us up for an edge to edge play on the cloud. So what that means is we're just looking for a close inside the cloud, and we would immediately target the other side of the cloud, which is 43,200, let's say. Target equals 43,200-ish. So I say ish because if this thing takes a while to come over here, it would target over here. But generally, when you have a flat Kumo on the other side, it kind of acts like a magnet, right? It acts like a magnet. Like the flatter it is, the more attracted the market is. And you can see that we did this during the bull run too, right? So we had this like relatively flat Kumo. Market came down here, closed inside, and immediately slammed over here. It tried to break out of the cloud, and then eventually became too sticky and dropped below the cloud. So same stands to reason here. On the ride up, if we can close inside here, it's going to immediately want to target this guy here. And the flatter it is, the more attracted the cloud is. So let's add that as well. Flat Kumo equals magnet. We could probably find a little thing. I don't ever use these little guys. Is there a magnet here? Where's it? I know there's a magnet icon. Where the hell is that thing? I'm not hip with the magnets or with the icons. Where is it? Here we go. Boom. Hooray. Oh shit, big magnet. So magnet, and we'll make it green because why not? Okay. So once again, if we get a close inside the weekly, expect this to get aggressive on the ride up. Okay. All right, so some questions. Apantalga, how's it going, man? Edge to edge target is weekly resistance 2. And assuming it doesn't teleport to 4,300. So edge to edge target wouldn't be 32. Maybe, this 43 too. But yeah, it would be targeting this zone over here. The inverse head and shoulders has not broken out yet. What do you mean? Technically, it wouldn't be considered a breakout until this weekly candle closes, right? It wouldn't. Whenever you have patterns with candles, like say it's a head and shoulders bottom, this isn't considered a breakout until it closes. Close is important, yeah. So the close is everything. And if you get really nerdy with it, you will notice that candles will sometimes fake breakouts and bait people into being too eager to they'll basically front run the close of the candle and then they'll get shit on when it actually closes. That's a common thing that happens. You're looking at the lower edge to the right. Oh, this guy? Yeah, so here's the thing. So this is several months away. I wouldn't think Bitcoin does this. I would assume it does this, or whatever it does after that. And if we look at CME futures, it has this very similar story here. So there's a lot of gaps on CME futures. We're getting really close to one right here, right? So if we close inside this fella, CME future says we're going to 44 essentially. But look at all these gaps in here. So gap, gap, and then there's like a liquidity pool over here. So there's a lot of reasons that we would see strong continuation upward. And if you're trading GBTC, same story here. GBTC has a cleaner head and shoulders setup. So if this closes a weekly like this, I'm not a fan of the fact that it's like slamming into this 50 because that's the first time it's done that. And well, that's not true. It like kind of like button hooked right here and then, but the cloud on GBTC is much further away. But I mean, there's a lot of setups here, right? So if this does see this head and shoulders bottom, close up here, it has a pretty steep target. Got all these dots on my screen I gotta clear off. Does that make sense to everyone? As we drill down deeper into the lower time frames, like the daily, you can see we're very close to some mean reversion targets. So mean reversion target would be this daily 600 EMA. And one of the things that I would want to watch out for is for this daily to fail to break out of this megaphone. Like maybe it comes up, wicks this fella, and comes back down. Because if it does, so let's talk price targets of this thing, right? So broadening wedge target, we just kind of measure this thing like this, and then we project it. So it's a $6,500 move essentially. And if it broke out here, $6,500 would be essentially here at 33. And the broadening wedge to the downside, if it failed, like let's assume both case scenarios here, if it failed, I mean, it's got 12.6. So daily broadening top, bullish target equals, what did I say, 33? Let's just say 33K. Bearish target equals a new low, 12.7-ish, 12,700. So we're at a very precarious point here. And it's very important to be cautious. You can be optimistic, of course, but be cautious because if this thing fails here, right? Again, we're sitting at this resistance. We're sitting at this overhanging Kumo. If it fails to break out here, we would most likely just ride this thing down. That's a really common thing that happens. So let's see if I can find some examples. Not going to find them much on the weekly. I'll find it on like the daily or something. So a lot of times in trending markets, when things fail to break out, they will kind of like ride the resistance. Let me see if I can find something. Here's one. So this was from forever ago, but still an example nonetheless. So you can see here, see if I can clean this up. Let's get rid of boom, boom. And let's get rid of the wait, conversion line. What do they call it on this? Lagging span. That's right. So we can see here that there was a similar setup. I mean, obviously the market structure is totally different, but there was a similar setup before where the market had this beautiful edge to edge setup where, sorry, just sneezed hard as hell, where it had a really nice edge to edge setup. It failed to close inside the cloud and it rejected it. And we can see here that, like, similar to our current structure, it had a huge move ahead of it if it did close inside the cloud. And it was a 20% move, right? Ours is much bigger than that, but it's the same, it's an analog. And you can see here that, like, the failure to get the rally going just caused it to ride the cloud down, and it provided resistance. And again, it's dynamic resistance. And it took until the cloud narrowed through, which is equivalent to having, like, we can think of this resistance as, like, the bigger the resistance, the stronger the market has to be to break through it. And the thinner the resistance, the easier it can pass through. And it took this narrowing of the Kumo for this thing to actually break out and get going. And of course, it provided support and then went going, right? And then we see this, like, really nice trending market. Eventually it broke down, blah, blah, blah. And here's the resistance again. Here's an example of the cloud providing a breakout opportunity where it almost to the edge to edge, fell short just a little bit, and it ultimately just kind of, like, inked its way through, came through the resistance and made its way up. But all of that to say, here's another edge to edge that provided a breakout. All of that to say that it is not impossible to imagine a world where this thing comes up, fails to get going, and just kind of, like, does one of these, right? I know everyone wants to be bullish, but it's important to consider these things so you don't find yourself overexposed, right? Okay, so some questions here. And while I'm fielding questions, I'll go ahead and slap the Discord down at the bottom or down in the chat. And if you're interested in checking out the stream community, the community section of my trading group, for sure, stop by. Next thing I'm going to set up is I'm going to set up a bot. I'm going to set up a Twitch bot that will have all these commands automated and all that other fun stuff. All right. Any questions about this current Bitcoin setup? Bueller? So if you remember from my last, I think it was on Monday, I talked about my 15-minute strategy of the EMAs. You can see it played out really, really well if you were awake to catch these entries. But it's kind of just like dribbling along this thing. It's currently sitting on the 15-minute EMA. If this fails, the target would be this 200 EMA as an entry. And if this guy fails, the 600 EMA would be the target there. So we can really use this 15-minute strategy. Although it's 15 minutes, the EMAs are over days and days and days. And it just allows you to like really like razor down your entry into the market. Oh, nice. Got a tier 1 subscriber. Thanks, Fuzi. Any thoughts on daily and weekly B bands for Bitcoin? Yeah. So, good question. With the B bands, they're pretty blown out right now. And when I say blown out is, so with Bollinger Bands, similar to the cloud, it is an all-inclusive system. It is a system for trend. It is a system for dynamic support and resistance. It's a system for overbought, oversold signals, and something that's pretty unique to Bollinger Bands is they function, they forecast volatility. And this is kind of like the buzzword that John Bollinger uses, is that Bollinger Bands are a forecast for volatility. Actually, you know what we should do? Make a new note. Bollinger Bands. Forecast for volatility. And that's kind of like a little bit of a word salad, but essentially what it means is the more compressed the bands are, so meaning like you can see there's an upper band, a lower band, and a midline. The more compressed they are, the more consolidated the market is. And you can think of it like a spring, right? So if you have a spring that's like really stretched out, if you push down on it, it has a response. But if you compress the spring really tightly, it's going to have an even bigger response. So the more coiled the market is, or in this case, the lower the BBW is, the Bollinger Band width, the more coiled the market is, and the stronger the move is that resolves that consolidation. This means the more squeezed bands are, the more consolidated the market is, and we can expect whatever direction the breakout is will yield strong volatility. Right? Does this make sense? This concept right here is really important to wrap your head around, because when you're using Bollinger Bands, it's like you got to know what you're looking at, right? So the more squeezed the market is, the more consolidated it is, and the more we can forecast volatility. Now, I'll say implications, right? If the bands are squeezed, we expect strong breakouts. If the bands are, let's say, I forget the actual phrase that Bollinger uses. So he uses, Bollinger Band squeeze. But let's say if they are objectively wide, volatility is not expected to continue. So shut the hell up, Jack. I'm going to ignore you. You know what? I'm going to remove your sword too. You know what's funny is I think Jack is actually my first mod ever from like 2017. Anyway, so the implications are if the bands are objectively wide, the volatility is not expected to continue. So when we look at things like this, we really want to see compressed bands that do something like this. And you can see that, just because they're compressed doesn't mean they're going to break out. But you can see that it's like you're weighing potential. The tighter the squeeze, the bigger the bang. And so when we have something like this, where we can look down here, so Bollinger Band width, this is just a way to measure the width, like the distance between the upper and lower band. The lower the squeeze, the tighter the the tighter the move. And we can see here that the breakout started, and once the Bollinger Bands start expanding again, that's an indication of a breakout, and we want to see this concept of riding the bands. Giving like a Bollinger Bands lecture here. Wasn't expecting to do this. So we have riding the bands. Riding the bands is just this general idea of like the candles like closing on the edges of the band, and that is an indication of a strong trend. Consecutive closes of candles on the upper or lower band that yields a strong trend. And we can also look at this as an overbought or oversold signal. So if the market gets sufficiently outside the band, it tends to mean revert to the band and try to continue, or it just kind of like dies. This is essentially just like a visualization of parabolic blow off. So say, for example, when we were looking back at the prior bull market, I'm going to show you a setup here. The prior bull market, we had these parabolic blow-offs, and eventually it went sideways. And when we look at the monthly candles, we can see a visualization of this quote-unquote parabolic blow-off. So you can see the squeeze on the bands, the riding of the bands, and then the subsequent parabolic blow-off that caused it to mean revert. It tried to continue the trend again, and it failed. And this is actually a Bollinger Bands M top. So there's a lot of setups using the Bollinger Bands. And when we look at something like the daily right now, we can see that like the Bollinger Bands aren't very consolidated. Now, that doesn't mean that the trend can't keep going, but it's just not a clean read. Something that is clean, though, is the fact that we're glued to this upper band. Now, if we reject this, or it starts floating like into the band here or something like this, see how it kind of like deviates from the upper band and it kind of just goes sideways? That's usually just a weak trend, and it's, it just doesn't have the gusto to keep going. Now, if we close this on the band and it keeps closing, that is objectively a strong trend. So at the moment, it has the potential for a strong breakout. It doesn't have a good clean squeeze that I would like to see, but this is kind of like an obscure pattern. You don't see these megaphone patterns often, and so there's not a whole lot of like references to pull from. Okay, so questions. That's a dirty innuendo waiting to have it pull your mind out of the gutter, sir. This is a family show. What's the bottom indicator? So when you're looking at Bollinger Bands, you want to accompany the Bollinger Bands with Bollinger Band width. So say accompanying indicators, BBW, Bollinger Band width, and percent. Where's my percent? Percent B, which is essentially where the price is relative to the B bands. So you can see here that like so BBW is pretty straightforward, right? It's like the wider the bands. So here's a pretty big example, right? Wider the bands, the higher the number. The more compressed the bands, i.e. the width is narrow, the lower the number. So it's just an oscillator that shows you objective reads of the Bollinger Bands. Percent B is the positioning of the price relative to the band. So you can see here that like if we go back to our monthly example, right? This is how you would use the Bollinger Bands. You can see here that like the price gets sufficiently outside of the band, it's sufficiently high, right? It tries to close outside of the band, but it's actually inside the band, right? So this whole little like zone is inside the band, and this is just an overbought signal, so it's outside the band here, right? And you can see it here too, right? Now, what this means is when we're riding, we're doing this quote unquote riding of the bands, we should see it, we would expect to see something like this, where the market is, where the percent B is doing something like this, where it's not getting like divergence or anything like that. And we could probably find better examples on the weekly. So like here, for example, right? Last bull market was, this is the whole last bull market. You can see the market was riding the bands here. This is just a visualization of riding the bands. All right. You said that when there is a B band squeeze, the reaction of the squeeze after the squeeze can be violent. Yes. Can the reaction be either way, bullish or bearish? Just looking for a correlated pattern. Yeah. So there are ways to get sneak peeks into where the direction is going to be. And the way that we can look at Bollinger Bands is, you have it. It's basically just the market is like cut in half. If the market is trending below the midline, it is a bear trend. If it's trending above the midline, it is a bull trend. And when we're in consolidation type things like here, for example, this is an objectively, I'm using this word objective very intentionally because subjective tools kind of suck. We want objective tools to keep ourselves honest and our bias in check, right? So at the moment, the weekly trend is bullish, right? We are above the midline. It's sitting on the upper band. And prior to this, we saw objectively a bearish trend. It was chilling below the midline. So what we see here is going into the squeeze, we see a move to the upper band. And, well, here's a better example because this actually played out, right? So here's a squeeze. The market makes a move to the lower band, and you can see the Bollinger Bands start to expand as the market goes to the lower band, and it births a new trend, right? Here's another example here. We have a squeeze. The market gravitates to this upper band, and it just rides the band all the way up, right? We see this over and over again. Again, squeeze, rides the band, keeps going all the way up. And on the downside, market has trouble breaking above the midline, goes into this big squeeze, and of course, this giant move to the downside. Yeah, does that make sense? Bollinger Bands are great. They're a really, really good system, and they work on like medium and low time frames. So like you can actually use it on like 15-minute charts sometimes. You can see here like how it would work, right? Squeeze, gravitates to the upper band, and it rides it all the way up. So it's just a really good visualization of like how strong is this move, right? Another squeeze, goes to the upper band, rides it all the way up. You can see here like it's kind of like squeezing, it's expanding a little bit, it's squeezing. But ultimately, the big move that yields from it is preceded by this gravitation to this attraction to the upper band. And vice versa. So here's an example of the drawdown, right? Squeeze, gets stuck to the band, and it goes all the way down. Yeah, so let's look at Ether Bitcoin. You're saying something's happening on the Bollinger Bands. So Ether USD. Or what? Ether Bitcoin is hugging lower weekly B band. Weekly B band. Yeah. So here you go. Case in point, right? Obviously, the monthly still has, the weekly still has a few days left on it, but this is a really good example of what I was just talking about. So we've got this squeeze going into it. The market is chilling at this lower band, and it's most likely going to birth a new downtrend. Now, there are certain, so B bands have a bit of nuance to them. So there is a fake out pattern. Just like if we have like a, we have like a, a triangle that breaks out and it comes back down here and yields a really powerful reversal. You can have the same thing on B bands. The default assumption should not be this reversal, and this reversal is called a head fake. So I'll scroll down here a little bit. I'll add another one. So B band setups. Head fake. A head fake is essentially a strong, so amid a really tight squeeze, we see a strong move to the downside, and the head fake setup is when it closes. It's usually like a bullish engulfing that counters this. And if we see a head fake setup where we see the squeeze, the market comes down, and it fakes with like a bullish engulfing candle on the next week, that's usually a sign that it's going to go slingshotting upward, right? But the default assumption is that it's just going to continue trending. I guess we don't need a new page for this. Also, Ether Bitcoin just kind of looks like shit. Like the trend is pretty dumpster fire. So, okay, so a question from chat. So when we're riding the bands and price gets closer to the bands, the trend is weakening. Not quite. So you got to be specific about what you're referring to. So let's look at this, for example, right? We can see here, where's my highlighter? We can see here it's riding the bands right here. And then it starts deviating inside of the bands more toward the midline. So we have two bands here. We've got the upper band, we have the lower band, and we have the midline, or sometimes it's called the basis, right? So if the price is glued to the upper band and then it starts deviating to the inside, that doesn't necessarily mean that like it's going to reverse. It just means that the trend is weakening and it needs to consolidate and go sideways and figure its life out. So I'll take this opportunity to go ahead and throw out the Discord again. If you're interested in joining the stream community, go ahead and check that out. I'm expanding a section of my Discord that I've had for a long time, and just having a public section that's open to, the public. The nice thing about Bollinger Bands is it works on a lot of different time frames, right? So you can see the hourly was very, very clean. Ride the bands, ride the bands, ride the bands, reject, reject, ride the bands, So there's a lot of different trade setups that you can find that you like and, trade them to the degree that you enjoy. All right, so let's go ahead and take some requests here. Jack, do you guys use the forums in your Discord? I just found out about them today, and these seem like a really nice little tool to have. Yeah, you should check it out. It's pretty cool. Like it's basically like having a subreddit in your Discord. It's pretty nice. All right, so go ahead and let's see what charts you guys want to look at. We can look at Ether. Ether USD. Um, so Ether is looking not as strong as Bitcoin, right? It is having a similar consolidation where it's like this broadening top deal. But you can see that it's like if we were to compare the 15-minute charts, right? So 15-minute, let's slap B bands on here. Actually, let's look at hourly. Let's see. So here's an example, right? So on the daily, the B bands, Ether is failing to glue to this upper band, and Bitcoin, on the other hand, daily is all glued up there, right? So it is objectively a weaker breakout on Ether. Like it's not even making it up to this upper boundary here. You guys don't have any symbols you want to look at? I'm getting spouted out these symbols all the time, and no one wants to do any requests on. Last time it was like a bunch of just random like NFT coins and stuff. You want to look at you Energy Fuels. The hell is this? Oh, the Head and Shoulders. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so this is since we last. I remember this. So someone requested this last time. Um, it has come down and tested the neckline here. This is a pretty clean Head and Shoulders too. Yeah, this looks like a gigantic Head and Shoulders top. You want to look at gummies? Do I do stocks and metals? Yeah, I do. So gold is actually doing really, really well this week. Um, oh, it just made a high. Nice. It just made a new high for the first time in a year, like a rolling year. This is the highest it's been. Like this is ideal. And if gold can close up here, that'd be huge. Because if it closes up here, it's set up for a massive, massive breakout. Like I'm thinking like multi-year bull market on gold. It has this giant cup and handle setup, and it looks like the handle's resolving. And if it closes up here, but bam, hold on to your britches. And same thing with silver. So silver lags gold, but you can see here it's having a really good week too. What I want to see on silver is it breaks this downtrend, but it's most likely just waiting for the handshake uh, from gold. It wants gold to get moving, and then silver will catch up. Um, Last time we were looking at Intel. Wait, what? I always forget. What is Intel's ticker? Is it INT? No. What is Intel's ticker? INTC. That's what it is. The reason why we want to look at Intel is because the monthly is setting up a Bollinger Band's W bottom, just waiting for this confirmation of this bullish engulfing here. And it would be humongo. It would be a ride up to the midline. And yeah. Just waiting for the bullish engulfing on the monthly here. So we got 2 weeks left on it, so a lot can happen. But here's another example of the squeeze, the Bollinger Band squeeze, right? You can see just how consolidated it is. And what's nice about this is you can look at it like, because every market behaves differently. Every coin consolidates and breaks out differently. So it's just like you can look back quickly in history and be like, how consolidated is it normally compared to, you know, prior consolidations? And we can see here it's fairly low, right? Isn't that also looking like a bear flag? It doesn't look like a bear flag to me. This kind of looks like, for me, I really like corn. No, just kidding. On the monthly, it like look how expanded the Bollinger Bands are. They're very, very expanded. Now they could keep going, but notice how it was riding the bands. It goes sideways. The chance of it continuing downward from here is very slim. You know, maybe it consolidates longer, but this is going to take multiple months for this thing to like round out and squeeze and get its life together. So I don't think this is like bear flagging for an immediate continuation. I would want to watch for this to see a bullish engulfing and then look for a mean reversion to the midline. Oh, you want to look at algo? Wait, let's see. Wait, what I fucked my. There we go. Let's look at algo. Oh, what? Oh, another gifted tier 1 sub. Thanks, Nookie. That's like 3 for 3. All right, so algo. Algo is obviously in a downtrend. This is, yeah, this doesn't get much more bearish than this. Which is funny, is I don't even really know where it goes down from here because it's like maybe it makes an all-time low, but this just looks like look at it, like it's stacked configuration. It's below the 50. Like this just looks like it's gonna bleed out. Especially when you take log off, it just looks even more cartoonish. Like this just looks. What is this? Yeah, I mean the weekly B bands are consolidating, so maybe it's like in the process of bottoming. But for now, the trend is decisively down, right? Even on the B bands, it's like not able to break this midline. What are you holding bags on this or what? Why are you trading this thing? Monthly EOS BBW. No. Okay. So the rule with Bollinger Bands like BBWs and BBMs is so here's a BBW right here. We want to see a close outside the Bollinger Bands, a swing inside the Bollinger Bands, and an absolute low that makes that stays inside the B bands. And once it does that, it targets the midline. So you can see here. Boom. So on the monthly, that wouldn't be the case, because on the monthly you can see both of the swing lows are inside the bands. Now it might make an actual double bottom, but in terms of Bollinger Bands, that's just not. That's not it. You know. Let me see if I can find some more setups. So like if we look at Bitcoin, for example, on the where's my chart? So if we do the monthly, like here's this was the absolute top of the market. This is how I called the top back in 2021, was because this setup here. You see absolute high, low, high outside the Bollinger Bands, swing low inside the Bollinger Bands, and an absolute high inside the bands. And this red candle is the entry signal, and you can see it just from there that marked the beginning of the bear market. And typically what you do is you target the midline, and if the midline fails, like for example here it closed below the midline, you target the lower band. You think the percent B is the perfect indicator for spotting Bollinger Bands M's? Yeah. So if we were to look at this, for example, like if I blow my indicator up here's the M. Here's the visualization of the M. You see this divergence type thing. So. Yeah, and once you get used to the Bollinger Bands, like to be honest with you, when I use them, I usually use it like this. I just kind of slap them on there because I can just kind of see now. But when you're first learning the Bollinger Bands, this is a great visual tool to help you, see these divergences and stuff. And it looks like we're actually. Oh, you know what's funny? So check this out. So here's the 33K, which is the midline of the. Let's add this to our list. Weekly itchy current has overhanging Kumo. If the weekly fails, so flat Kumo, target is 43K. C, weekly midline, target is 33K, which is the same as the broadening top target. That's really funny that lined up like that. So this guy, which is also, approximately this monthly resistance here. Let's say, I said weekly, sorry. Monthly, E-bands, midline. It's 33K. Actually, this should be C, huh? C. D. Wait. Oh, I messed up. I like to have my notes like clean. Let's say this. Should be a 2. It should be a 3. Sorry. Cool. Can I look at SPY? What does it say? Can I look at SPY? B-bands are pinching on the weekly. So here's the thing. That's the nice thing about the B-bands is like you can just like once you know what you're looking at, you can quickly decide like is this even worth looking at You can just go stock to stock to stock or coin to coin to coin, whatever you're doing. And you can be like, is this consolidated? Is this ready to go? Is this trending? Blah, blah, blah. And you can just quickly, like instantly look at it. So when we look at SPY, all right, what are you saying? The pinching on the weekly? Yes, they are. Very, very much so. So SPY was kind of a weird one because it didn't really like ride the bands. It like floated in this awkward area, like inside. And I would imagine that's probably because a lot of people were just forcing the market up. But here's an example of it riding the bands, right? Boom, boom. Yeah, so I don't like this on the weekly, this overhanging resistance that's here. So, okay, so here's an example of a failed edge to edge. This is a really good one. So let's get rid of you, get rid of you. Rid of you. So you can see here's a failed edge to edge setup. The market came into the cloud, failed to ride to the other side, and got spat out, and now it's resistance. Conversely, here's failed edge to edge setup on the bullish side. It went up, failed to rally, then it closed inside and it rode all the way down and just snapped through the band or the cloud. If I slap the one deviation B bands, it is riding it. Let me see. It's kind of floating outside it, really, right? Not really riding it. Maybe 1.5. .5 was where it was at, apparently. SPY is retesting the downtrend at the moment. On what time frame? Thoughts on NASDAQ? Yeah. Oh, you mean this? Do you mean NASDAQ or Norwegian Air Shuttle? Or which one are you talking about? There's quite a few. 3-day SPY. Oh, you mean just like the trend line? Yeah. I think I know what you're talking about. Like this fella? Yeah. I personally don't like these kinds of retests. Like, I want to see a clean retest and a bounce, not a clean retest, a bounce, and a bounce. And that's what it's seeing here. We see like several bounces on this thing, which makes me think it's actually not going to bounce. Yeah, we can look at NASDAQ. What ticker are you looking at? Like, what ETF are you looking at for NASDAQ? US. Oh, on Owanda? Okay. So yeah, I guess it's very similar, right? I mean, it is seeing a little bit of a better bounce than SPY. Let's look at the B bands and like the weekly. So this actually looks more bullish than SPY. You can see that it's especially if it closes this bullish engulfing, that'd be sick. It's sitting above the midline. This looks like it might be ready for a ride up. And the way you trade this is, you set your stop below the midline, or you say you just wait for a close below the midline. Because these are weekly setups, so this takes a while to you don't want to get stopped out intra-week. That would suck. And it's not a one size fits all, right? Like you can see quite clearly here, like, oh, it broke out above, and then it just like broke back down. Oh, it broke out above, and then it broke back down. So, it's just a setup. Like it's not a guarantee that anything's going to happen, but it's just a way to, increase your odds. Daily chart bullish. I guess so. Yeah, but again, I don't like this. Like the Bollinger Bands are okay, but I don't like this kind of shit here, where you have this looming resistance overhead. Like I want to see confluence where it's like you see both. You see both a check on the trend, and you see a check on like something else, like structure or Bollinger Bands, or like I want to see multiple things line up. It gives me high confidence in a setup. So SPY is quite likely to expand volatility to the downside. Let's go back to SPY. Okay, so right now we see that the Bollinger Bands are consolidated, right? We can see this in the BBW down here. Got the big beautiful woman down there. And if we see a strong move to the downside that like velcros to this lower, like right now, no. But if we see a move to the downside that like velcros onto this lower band, that is a fork, and we see the Bollinger Bands expanding, which would just look like this thing doing this. If we get a close down here, yeah, that would be an indication that it has more downside volatility. Right now, it's kind of just hanging out, because it's not like it hasn't really decided where it wants to go. Like we would want to see something like. So here's an example of a failure, actually. So we had a squeeze. It glued to the bottom band, and it kind of just like nah, it went up. But let's find an example of like a good. So here's an example, okay? Here, it didn't quite glue to the band, so let's actually go back in time. Okay, you can see here, it didn't glue to the band yet. And this would be tempting to want to be like, oh, this is very consolidated. This is going to be a bearish move, right? We can see as it plays out, it goes to the upper band. Go faster. Goes to the upper band, it glues to it, and then the new trend begins. Right? And there it goes. And then you just watch for it to fail on this midline here. Just wait for it, right? So if we were seeing this in real time, this would be the trade. All of these shakeouts, but the Bollinger Bands say stay in the trade. And then bam. Here's your sign of weakness in the market. Oh, it closed down here. This is the sign to get out. And you can see here, this is where all the volatility starts. The trend is over. You've, you squeezed all of its utility out of that. Does that make sense? So right now, long story short, this is just non-actionable. We want to see it come up and glue here or glue here. The market says, market says, hey, we are ripe for the pickings. Pickin'? Pickin'? I think it's pickins. Ripe for the pickins. Where are we going? Look for the glue to the band. And what's nice is you can just quickly go through all of your symbols, right? You can be like, oh, this is still Bitcoin. Right? Like we can go to GBTC, right? Look on the weekly. We go, okay, cool. We had a good squeeze. It's up here. If it closes up here, which it probably is going to, it only has 45 minutes left on it. This is a huge indication of a new trend beginning. Right? We have got a really good squeeze down here. This is begging for upside. Now, we got to be careful because maybe it comes up here and rejects, but the pathway is paved. Whether or not Bitcoin decides to follow it is a different story. So Bitcoin looks like it's already above its prior high. That's good. So here was the pre-session high. I like to like when I'm doing scalp trades, I really like to use the sessions, and we made the high was made pre-session. Actually, I wonder what this looks like. Yeah. I mean, there is a potential for. This is the hourly. We would want to see like a close of a new high here. So if we look at this, right, looking at this, where's my thing? You can see a lot of similarities there. I'm not saying it's going to make an M top. I'm just saying that like this is how you use the Bollinger Bands. It's like you look at it. It's like what are the possibilities of the M top? Like is this even an option going forward? And then you look for the indication that's going to do it. And if it does, and you're like, okay, I've got a plan, right? We were at the yearly pivot too. I don't ever even look at pivots. I don't know shit about pivots. QQQ is stronger than SPY. Yeah. So I'll go ahead and post this Discord one last time. If you're interested in joining the stream community, like I'm gonna have some stuff put up there. I'll have all my tweets routed there. I'll have announcements there, so it's like a one-stop shop for all my content. So if that's something you're interested in, go ahead and join the Discord. And that's most likely where I will review applications. So if you're interested in actually joining my trading group, it's been closed for the last year and a half at this point. I'm thinking about opening it back up on a limited basis. So I'll most likely have an application process. So if you want to stay up to date on that whole thing, definitely join the Discord because that's where the announcements will come. And if you're waiting to, I've already had several people message me on Twitter asking me about trying to join the trading group and stuff like that. So if that's something you're interested in, definitely join the Discord because I'll be making all the announcements about that there. Trading group is back. The trading group never went away. Trading group has been there. I just closed it to new people. It's been open since 2017 and it never went down. Thanks for the stream. You're welcome. I just realized your name is Chicken Hunters, not Chicken Hunters. Just noticed that. Any other charts you guys want to look at? The session closes in 40 minutes. So, what I'll do is I'll stream some games, waiting for the session to close. We'll do an end of stream review of what I think the weekend will probably look like, and then we'll wrap it up. HYG. Let's see. HYG. It's HTG. HYG. Then we get into the weekend hanky panky. Yeah, exactly. HYG. Oh. Oh, nice. Okay, so Mike posted in the Discord, as long as it stays between the. Okay, yeah. So he uses the with Bollinger Bands. They use two standard deviations. There's a technique you can use where you use one standard deviation and two standard deviations, and it forms like a nested band where it's like, it kind of gives you a little bit more resolution into the trend. All right, so HYG. Let's look at this. Yeah, I mean HYG just looks like a pretty run of the mill bear trend, honestly. This is a weekly chart. Monthly is pointless. Weekly chart is that's daily. Weekly chart is here. I mean, what does a monthly B band chart look like? I mean, the downside volatility looks like it's weakening. So this, I would look for this to make a new low. So let's say here's your low. I would look for this to make a new low down here and a close above. So like, like a wick. And this would be a really clean B band, a BBW. But yeah, for now, this just looks like just downhill. USDT, USDT.D. What is this a chart of? Market cap USDT dominance? What does that mean? Dominance of. Can you explain what I'm even looking at? Am I late? What did I miss? It's funny you ask because I have notes over here on the right side of the stream. So for the first time since bar replay isn't available for current symbol, random. Okay. So for the first time since 2021, it's actually below. USDT.D is like Dixie for crypto. In what sense? Can you elaborate on that? I don't ever look at this chart. What do you mean by Dixie for crypto? If USDT.D rises, crypto has risks. People are returning the safety of stablecoins. Oh, I see. So it's like it's like a relative strength of the dollar versus crypto. Okay, that makes sense. So anything that's bearish on this chart would be inversely bullish for crypto. I see. Interesting. Okay. See what this trend looks like. Yeah, I mean it looks bearish. There's this C clamp setup here too, which is what is this? 5.7%. Essentially is targeting this zone down here. Yeah, that makes sense. Interesting. I'll have to remember this chart. What was the other one you said? Let's see. Oh, you said HYG. Okay. Yeah, this thing looks like it wants to keep going. Look at all this volume down here, man. So much volume on the right up. I wonder if it just does the weekend run where it just goes nuts. Or maybe it does the opposite and does a weekend shakeout, and then by the time the monthly or the Sunday candle opens, it resumes. Weekend is such a toss up, man. Sometimes it's like a shakeout, sometimes it's a fake out, sometimes it's, different stuff. You know what? I think I have pivots. I don't. I thought I had a pivot. What are the typical settings for pivots? The hell is this? What's the typical indicator you use? Pivot points high and low? Oh, I don't want that. Yearly pivots are nice. Yearly pivots? Oh, what the hell is all this? Is this the pivot here? Okay, so here's a pivot. Okay, so what is the takeaway from this? That it hit the target? And then what? Type Woody time for what? Woody pivot points? By Harry Potter? But what does that mean if it clears it? On what basis? So if they're yearly pivots, On what time frame do you judge pivot points standard? Oh, Jesus Christ. What the hell? What am I looking at? Standard or Woody or standard Woody? Okay, Woody. Yearly. Where do I see yearly? Yearly. 15. Uncheck everything except for P. Oh. Oh shit. Okay, so I'm looking at this. Okay. Am I on the right thing? Woody. On Woody. Maybe you're looking at traditional. You're looking at the traditional one, you're running into it now. Anyway, so what is the takeaway from this? I understand that it is. I understand that it functions like support and resistance, but on what basis? At what point do you consider this broken support or broken resistance? Because if this is a yearly pivot, backtest it live. Yeah, I'm trying to do that. I want a different label. There we go. All right. Can I put the label on the right side? That's annoying. Position label left, right. Okay. All right. So if these are yearly pivots, is it useful to use it for anything other than monthly timeframes? So okay. So let me be more pointed with my question. You're saying reclaim a pivot, but what does that mean? Define reclaim. What does that mean? Because if I look at it on the 1 minute chart, I could be like, oh yeah, I reclaimed it, blah, 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 right? If I look at it on the 4 hour chart, I go, oh yeah, okay, reclaimed it. If I look at it on the daily, I go, okay, yeah, I reclaimed it. If I look at it on the weekly, no, I did not reclaim it. If I look at it on the monthly, no, it did not reclaim it. So like on what basis do you use a yearly pivot? It seems kind of biased to say I'm going to use a yearly pivot and then use a daily close to judge its support acceptance or support denial. So does anyone have an answer for that? Like, what is the general strategy with it? You guys all wanted me to look at these fucking pivots. Someone answer me. I think people use them as sort of dynamic level, kind of like fib extensions. Okay. Okay, if you're using daily pivots for scalping, that makes sense. I got it. But if it's a yearly pivot, meaning it prints it once a year, uh, I'm trying to understand what the hype is about it. Like, what is like for example, right? If you have support, right? Just because it bounces off of it doesn't mean it's support. Like the time frame matters. So on what time frame do you judge acceptance or denial of support for a yearly pivot? I would think at least a weekly. I would think, but I don't know. I don't ever use them. Monthly or yearly. Yeah, I would think monthly, right? If it's a yearly pivot, it would have to be monthly. Like weekly is like that's stretching it in my mind. Like, but to sit here and say a daily candle, that doesn't make any sense. Never even looked at it or thought about it. Yeah, that's kind of how I feel about it. It's like I'm just trying to understand to what degree is this useful because it kind of just seems like it just is something that has fit people's bias. I mean, there's stuff like this that seems like it might be useful, I guess. But like, isn't this still like? Couldn't you have derived the same information from just this horizontal here? Seems to me like some of you guys are taking a part of a system to fit your to fit your bias. Like I'm trying to get a cohesive argument for why this is useful, and no one's giving it to me. It just paints an overall trend of the market for that year. I don't really have an answer beyond that. But this isn't a trend. It's not a trend. It's a level. Jack uses it. Maybe you should ask him on your first podcast. Fucking ask him right now. Isn't he in the chat? If you backtest it, it shows that Bitcoin hits pivots and then tops at S1, I believe, and pulls back. Let's see. If you backtest it, it shows Bitcoin hits pivots. So I understand that I understand the concept of it being like I'm going to go here, right? But to what degree after that is it useful? That's the question. Okay. Do you use traditional or Woody? I think they're using Woody. That seems to be the general consensus. Can you use traditional or Woody? I don't know. I don't use these. So what does traditional look like? I mean, like, 'cause I can make an argument like, oh yeah, like traditional, we're slamming into it. Okay, so answer me, riddle me this, Batman. Why do people use Woody versus traditional? What's the argument? What is the argument for one versus the other? Because to me, traditional looks more useful. Does it not? Like, look where it topped. I'm not going to speak for Jack completely. I'm quoting. Sounds like a direct quote from Jack, but okay. But I'll say he was focused on watching the pivot at the start of the year when it printed the first pivot. Um, you guys are so pumped about this, but I need a simple answer. Don't give it to me. Okay. Let me here. This is the question. Okay. Pivots. What time frame? Is time frame one word? What time frame is a yearly pivot looked at for support or resistance? Also what? Why Woody versus traditional? Also. Well, we'll leave that for now. It draws lines so you don't have to. Yeah. It's honestly, that seems like the general consensus here is that it's like, oh, I like to draw lines. This thing also draws lines. This is the Chat GPT of lines. Check out Denmark on weekly and monthly. Let's see. It's DM. I mean, here's the thing. Okay. This all just looks like something that you're able to just paint whatever narrative you want based on the settings you want. Like I can make an argument for this Denmark shit too. Like, oh yeah, look, it did this, so therefore this is better. Oh look, it did this, therefore it's better. Oh look, Fibonacci called the top of this. And the bottom of this. Dude, Fibonacci seems like the one. Look at this. Top, bottom. This began the new bull market. Boom. Up only. Sitting right at it. Uh-oh. We're sitting at the Fibonacci level. Got resistance here. Uh-oh. Oh, Jaxer. Great. Hey, what read the questions on the right. I got questions for you. I demand answers. Check yearly Woody on BLX. BLX. Okay. Now what? Wait, what? Does it? It doesn't go back to 2014. Oh. Okay. I'm here. Now what? No, I understand how it works. All right, I got my S1 and my R1. Can I change R1 color to red? Sure. Just for you. Okay, so it's up. But that I've questions, okay? What time frame is a yearly pivot looked at for support and resistance? Like, for example, okay, looking at this, everyone seems to be super excited about this. Why? On what time frame do you say that this is broken the pivot? Is it the weekly? Is it the daily? Right? For a yearly pivot, I would think that it has to go from minimum weekly, preferably monthly, I would think. Because sitting there looking at it on the daily, that seems like it's just kind of fitting some sort of bias of some kind. Yes, they should be. Are you at home right now? Because if so, I'm gonna call you on Discord. Let's. This delay in chat is irritating. Weekly is fine, but compare. Oh my God. Guys are a bunch of whiners. There, you got a different color for the S1. You got a different color for the R1. What do you want from me? I'm immobile, but I'll call and answer. Okay.
Oh no, I'm not at home. But I can. Okay.
All right, guys. I got Jack on the stream. He's going to answer some questions for us. Go ahead.
Okay. So the punchline here for me is the like if we compare where we are as a like call it the pre-halving year, which I think is very important leading into each cycle. But so this to 2023 to me has a lot of similarity to 2019, just kind of in general.
Hmm.
And if we go back and look at how price behaved once we broke the pivot back in 2019, it was just like it was this explosive upward move after a lot of pain. Like there was a lot of pain leading into that. Once it broke, it was kind of like buckle up, we're going. So that was part of the. This has been like a long time coming. Just a kind of a what if question. Hey, if we're gonna start doing this thing where we behave cyclically, then the last time we were in this situation, we would expect the bear market to bottom like the year before the pre-halving year. So by the end of 2022, the bear market should be bottom-ish or near the bottom because that's what happened in 2018 leading into 2019. Well, that's kind of happened. Check that box. Now we're in the pre-halving year. Things have started to rally to the upside. Every dip has been effectively bought. Going back to the FTX post FTX breakup, the falling wedge breakup, whatever you want to call it. So things are behaving very similarly, and so you can extrapolate that to the pivot itself and say, okay, well, things got real exciting once we conclusively broke above the pivot. And you, like you said on the weekly, that's completely reasonable. That's completely fine. But for like what I'm speculating here is I think big money uses pivots as a sign to move in or at least be in position before we move up or whatever. Like if you think of it as a composite operator who's building a position, I think they want to be in position before the market moves above that level. So if we go back again to say 2019 and we keep looking at this comparison, we we broke north of the pivot and we found we had this blow off top up at the next level at the extension target for the yearly, which was the R1, the resistance one. And you can see it's interesting because the market built this sort of pennant, this wedge, whatever you want to call it, and they did that right. Like if you draw the support and resistance lines of that period up at like 13K, when the market consolidated, it comes to a point like the apex is that R1. So there's a lot of signs that point to the market really does take these levels very seriously. And the market came back down and retested the pivot itself in 2019. So I'm using that as like a kind of what if scenario here. I think it'd be really interesting here in 2023 if the market broke north, ran the R1, which is only at like 30K or 33K. I mean, we're a stone's throw away from this point. Have a period of consolidation up there, get everyone nice and horny, all time highs right around the corner, that kind of stuff. And lo and behold, by the end of the year, it sells off back to the pivot, which for us is what 24K, 25K, leading into next year. So, like a nice big kind of last minute fake out. Now, that's all just speculation, and markets always do new things, and I'm sure that's not at all what's going to happen. But it's just kind of a fun thing to like mentally think about. And I know you like to like put on your timeline on Twitter and stuff. You showed some bearish setups right now, and it's kind of that same idea. It's like just keeping you like kind of open to, yeah, there might be a nice run, but it also might give it all back before the end of the year. Like, so it's just kind of keeping you loose mentally.
Okay, I appreciate that, but that doesn't answer my question.
Okay, okay. What's the question?
Sorry. The question is, at what time frame do you look at a yearly pivot to know if it's accepting, breaking through, or rejecting the pivot?
So you had offered a weekly candle, and I think that's perfectly fine. But right now, it's got to be more than a day, because in the like, if you look at daily candles, we've been all over that thing. We've been above, below, above, below. So
Yeah.
you can't. There's no way the market's going to say, "Oh, a daily candle means everything's fine." Not even a 3 day. So I think you're right. I think a weekly, or maybe like two weekly candles. So you're going to have to get more than just a single day for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah. Okay. You hear that,
Because
folks?
there's yeah, I mean, there's the otherwise the market would have already sent it, right? So why would you argue, oh yeah, the first 17 times were fake outs, but this one's real? Like, you got to give yourself more than that. Maybe even a monthly candle, you know?
Yeah, I would think for a yearly pivot, a monthly candle, or at least a weekly.
Yeah, I mean, reasonable.
Yeah.
And then zooming in and looking for confirmation, like support being built, that kind of thing.
Okay, so why do you use Woody instead of traditional?
So this is back from like 2020 or so, and I was doing a bunch of back testing, and it seemed like Woody was the most accepted, like, as far as what the market, like how support and resistance seem to work. Like, one of my favorite examples is the 2018 bear market is the 2017 S1. So if you look at the 2017 S1, the extension target below the pivot for 2017,
Yeah.
that's at like 4K or 3,800, something like that, and that ends up being the neckline for that ascending triangle, like that the entire subsequent bear market, consolidated in and then broke up. And the moment we went north of that, it was like, full send it all the way to 13K. So there's several examples like that. You can go back and check that, where the market seems to really, on the macro, the market seems to really like these levels. It's almost like, if you looked at the yearly level for Bitcoin, and let's say 2017 comes around, and all, like, or I guess 2018, January 1st, 2018 comes around, you sold everything you owned in 2018, and you were looking for a level to buy. Like, you could have just looked at the chart and been like, hey, look, that's an interesting level, 3,500. There's a lot of reasons we would look down there. And as far as pivots go, that's it. For 2017, that's the S1. That's way down there. Sure. Okay. You just put in your limit buy at 3,800, whatever, and walk away. So I'm not saying I did that. I'm not saying I even know anybody who's done that, but it's interesting to look at how these levels sit on a chart for an entire year, and the price action like walks its way down to it. It seems like.
Okay.
And again, I'm not sitting at a computer. I don't have the examples right in front of me, but I know there's at least five that I've picked up on. And it's not just on Bitcoin; it's on other assets as well. And you can kind of play with it. And anybody in the chat, I recommend you guys do it too. It just for nothing else than to do your own due diligence. But you can turn both, like, you can overlay both, uh, or multiple types of pivots. You can set one to Woody, one to traditional, one, like, there's 5 or 6 options, and see which one you think fits best. And it's probably time to do it, because I haven't done it in a couple of years, maybe even like 2.5, 3 years at this point, to see how the market behaves. But I don't use anything under yearly. I don't. I know people who will throw on daily pivots and they swear by it, or monthly, and I don't mess with that stuff. I just like to see big picture, where are the big moves likely to come, or like, where is a key support resistance line.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. Okay.
All right, cool.
All right.
2 hour stream, by the way.
I
You're sweaty.
I know I'm fatigued right now. My
You're
attention
like, what are you
is
doing?
yeah. It's you know that sound, like the sound that bacon makes when it's on a pan. That's how my brain feels right now. This. Psst.
Yeah, for sure. Well, you need to do like the real streamers and do nothing but 100x degen trades, and that's how you get real audience. Okay.
I know.
Gosh.
I know.
All
All
right,
right.
man. Well, have a good stream. Okay.
All right. See ya.
See ya. Bye.
All right. So you heard it from the horse's mouth, there, folks. Okay. I think at this point we've exhausted the utility of this discussion. All right. Any other questions before we wrap this up? I'll go ahead and slap the link to the Discord one more time in here. Wait, what? That's not what I want. Get the invite. We'll slap it in there. Sorry for opening that can of worms, dude. It's your fault. You did this. Look what you did. I think we talked about that for like 45 minutes. All right, guys. So we'll go ahead and end it here. It's been 2 hours. We'll wrap it up and go ahead and join the Discord if you haven't already. Again, I'll do all my announcements there for the stream. I'll post my stream notes there too. That's probably a good idea too. I just thought of that now, and I'll post them there. I'll post clips. I'll post everything there. It'll be like the home base for my content, my Twitter stuff. And once I get the application figured out for joining the trading community, I'll post that there too. And if you're interested in joining, that's where you'll find out all that information. So thanks for sticking it out, guys. Stay tuned. Join the Discord one more time, and have a great rest of your week.